Hi, my name's Neil. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me. I'm a 45-year-old skateboarder who's just got back into it in the last 5 years. I started skating when I was much younger and gave it up in my teenage years and rediscovered it again about 5 years ago. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that story, and maybe some of my other videos will interest you as well. For today's video, I've realized it's high time I showed you what I was currently riding. It's been a long time since I've talked about my boards, and I think a fair bit may have changed since then. So let's get into it. Okay, so the board I'm going to talk about today is the one that I use to ride on mini ramps and bowls and pools. I have a different board that I ride for vert ramps. The main difference for that really is that the trucks are a lot tighter. It's not a vastly different board, but today is my kind of general purpose board. Right, so here we go. Let's start with the deck. It is a Caballero Bucky Lassic flight deck, and hopefully the shot is wide enough that you can see that. Okay, so I've got the specs here in front of me. It is 8.62 inches wide. It has 6.5 inch nose and a 6.5 inch tail. It's 32.2 inches long, and it has a 15-inch wheelbase. And Caballero say this is the K21 concave. The deck shape is the 297. Now Caballero have like these 3-digit numbers for their shapes. I guess they might be the order in which they were produced or created. The Steve Caballero board I ride is the 216, and this one is the 297. So shape-wise, it kind of looks a bit popsicle shaped. It's got a fairly rounded tail, kind of squared off a bit, fairly rounded nose. It looks a bit like a popsicle, but it's not. It's what people would call a shaped deck. I feel like it rides like a popsicle, but the main thing for me is the wheelbase. And wheelbase, for those that don't know, is literally the distance between the axles. And what that means really is that you can have a slightly wider stance when you skate. For me, I like a wider wheelbase. It just feels more sturdy and solid when I'm going fast around bowls, and just got used to a longer wheelbase. It just feels right for me. Most popsicle decks I think are about 14 inches. The extra inch for me just feels right. I think it's got a fairly steep concave. It's going to be really hard to kind of demonstrate that on the video, but that's the front, and you can kind of see that it looks fairly steep if it's sideways onto the camera there. Hopefully that gives you some idea of the concave. It definitely feels a steeper concave than your average popsicle. And with regards to the kind of flight deck construction, I'm sure a lot of you know what that is, but in a nutshell, it's like a 5-ply deck and has like 2 layers, maybe 3, of a composite material. I don't know exactly what it is. Some people say it's carbon fiber, but I don't know exactly. And Caballero don't talk about it. Means the deck's very slightly thinner than your regular kind of 7-ply, and they say it's a lot stronger, and I've seen a lot of videos to say so. I never ever break decks. I think I've only ever broken one in my life. It's not about the strength for me, although I do feel that it kind of remains springy throughout its entire life. I never really suffered from like the board sag thing that people get after a few months. I certainly know what people mean when the board just feels a bit dead, but I don't do ollies and flips and things like that, so it doesn't really matter to me if something loses its pop. This feels to me, after so much use, that it's still as good as it was when it was brand new. Now, on average, a deck will last me about 2 years, which some people might find amazing. I think mainly that's because I only skate transitions, so I'm not flipping the board or slamming it around like street skaters do. And the only thing that really wears out for me and means I need to change the deck is when the tail starts to razor. And this one is just getting there at the moment. I don't know if you can see that very well in the camera. Hopefully you can see that. Starting to razor. Sideways on might be, you might be able to just work that out, but yeah, it's pretty much there at the moment. Not a big deal because I have more of these, and that's another thing that, you know, I don't change my decks very often. So yeah, one of these will last me 2 years, but also when I do change them, I generally stick to the same one again. So I'm not one of those people that changes their deck every couple of months and then gets something completely different. I want to change my board because it's worn out, like completely worn out, not because I just get bored of it. But also I don't want to have to get used to a different board. When I find something I like, I want to stick to it because I don't want it to hinder my skate progression. I want to be able to get on something and just ride it straight away with no different feeling. So I tend to stick to the same decks, and this one is almost due for retirement. I've got, I think, 3 more of these ready to go just because I want to know that I've got them on hand if I need them, and I don't want supply problems or anything like that. Or I don't want Bucky to change his design or whatever, change something about it that he wants to change, and then for me to have to change as well because of that. So I keep a couple in hand just so that I can keep on going at least for a decent amount of time with the same deck. Now, aside from how often I change my deck, I actually change the grip probably every 6 months. Because the decks last so long, the grip itself doesn't last that long, and as soon as like my feet start to feel a bit slippy, I will re-grip it. I always re-grip, and I always put the Pal Peralta logo sticker in there. Bit of an old school thing, but all the Pal Peralta decks used to have this as their top logo, and I used to cut the grip around it. These days, these boards don't come with the top logo. You can just see the composite layer in the top, but I like to put the PAL logo sticker in the middle like they used to be back in the day, and I cut my grip around it. So that's something that I do with all of my PAL boards. I'm a bit of a PAL Peralta fanboy if you can't tell. But yeah, the grip is probably the thing that gets changed the most. So that's the deck, and you know, moving on from the deck itself, let's talk about the rails. I've done some videos about rails before. These are, I think they are Enjoy tummy sticks, but they are basically the same as the Pal Peralta thin ribs, which they stopped making the thin ribs a long time ago. Steve Caballero uses them as well, and he has a bit of a stockpile of them. I've got a few pairs of them left, but I kind of stopped using them because it's strange, but the used market is going crazy for them at the moment. So I kind of don't want to burn through them in case they're worth quite a lot of money. I mean, I've seen them selling for about £50 a set, which I think is probably, I don't know, about $75 maybe. So yeah, they're exactly the same. They feel the same to me. They look the same. They're the same color. So I think these are the Enjoy ones. If they're not Enjoy, they might be the thin ribs. I can't even remember. Oh no, they are Enjoy. They've got it written on the top there. But yeah, they're super hard. They're a bit like the pig rails. Jeff Grosso was a big fan of the pig rails because they're super hard. They slide really, really well when they're really hard. Some people don't like that. Some people are afraid of hard rails because they slide a lot. But I'm a big fan of the board slide, and the further I can slide, the better. And so the harder the rails are, the better. So at the moment, that's what I'm riding on this board. And the bottom line is rails just make you slide way more consistently than sliding on the board. A lot of people don't like rails. They think it makes your board heavy. They weigh nothing. They don't make your board heavy at all. And a lot of people are afraid because they make you slide a lot, and they're afraid of sliding more than they can control. But you get used to it. I wouldn't be able to do a board slide on the board itself without lots of practice anymore because I got so used to using rails, and I can slide really well with rails. I don't really care about protecting my graphic. A lot of people use rails just to protect their graphic, but I don't care about that. And the other use for them is they are useful for grabbing when you're doing airs or any kind of grab tricks. They're just something that you can kind of latch your fingers around when you grab the board. So they're useful for a multitude of reasons, and I've always used them throughout my skating life. Even when I was younger, I stopped for a little while when I had a slick deck, but aside from that, rails are the way. Okay, next let's move on to the trucks. So these are independent trucks. I've been riding independent trucks my entire life. I don't really see any reason to change. These ones I have had for a very long time, pretty much since I started skating again, so about 5 years. I did swap them for a new set well over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I wore those down quite a lot, but I actually went back to these because I missed the grooves that I'd created in these, and you can probably see on the camera, I don't know how close it will focus, but there is a nice healthy groove in the truck there. You can see that, and it's right down to the axle. I'll try and do some close-up shots to show you that, but it's right down to the axle there. I really like those grooves, especially on pull coping. It just kind of locks in nicely. The front one is a similar story, but I've actually ended up with like three separate grooves, so one there, and one there. And the middle one came from when I was learning frontside 50-50 grinds. For some reason it started latching in the middle rather than to one side, how I lock in. So sometimes when I do one it'll latch into the middle, sometimes it'll be on to one side. But yeah, I've ended up with 3 grooves in my trucks. But either way, I like worn trucks because of the grooves that help you lock in, but also that the truck actually flattens off. So with that flat surface, it actually feels a bit more stable when you're going through a grind. So for all those reasons, I like to keep my trucks as long as possible. There will become a time not too far away, I'm sure, where this back one is gonna break because it's really getting down there. It's right through to the axle, and so at some point the axle's probably gonna break, but I'll take it as far as it goes until it does break. There's a couple of slightly unusual things about my trucks, one being that I have changed the kingpins out for these Grind King kingpins, and the reason for that is that they sit an awful lot lower than the standard independent ones. Hopefully you can see how low they do sit. So the top of the truck is here and they're sitting way lower, and for me that's a good thing. It means that the kingpins don't get in the way. Often with a lot of different trucks, the kingpins stick out quite a long way and they start to get in the way of grinds when the truck starts to wear down. So change them out for the Grind King inverted kingpins. I always used these back in the day and found some to keep on that tradition. And the only other thing that's different is that I use Bones hard bushings instead of the independent ones. They're a lot harder, but they also allow the truck to turn a lot further. People say that independent trucks don't turn. They do. They turn less with the stock cylindrical bushings. If you get coned bushings like these ones, non-cylindrical coned bushings, they turn a lot further. So it means that I can have my trucks tighter, but still turn further when I'm riding bowls and pulls. So that's the trucks, and now onto the wheels. So the wheels that I ride are Spitfire Formula 4 full conical 99 DU, 99 durometer, and they are just the best wheels that I've ever come across. They grip fantastically on wood, on concrete. They are fast. The 99 durometer is hard enough that they go fast, but they're not too hard so that they slip out. I never do things like reverts, so I'm not interested in the wheels actually sliding at will. And I can push them into a slide if I need to on wooden surfaces, and they slide just enough. There's enough give on them for doing things like my board slides. When I first go into the board slide, there's a little squeak as I go in, and when I stop the board slide and put the wheels down, there's a tiny little bit of a slide as I gain traction again to go back in fakie. So for me, I've got used to them. They're perfect. They have quite a wide contact patch, so they're quite wide wheels, which just means that they grip better. The narrower the wheel, the less contact, the less grip you have. So for me, they're just the perfect formula. And these are 58 millimeters, so I think perhaps almost the biggest. I think they do some 60 millimeter classics, but not the full conicals. So the 58 millimeter, I think, are the biggest that you can get for this wheel. And why so big? Well, the bigger the better. The bigger wheels you have, the faster you go. And bigger wheels are better for latching onto coping, so things like pull coping, or on the vert ramps. It just feels a lot more solid than tiny wheels. Tiny wheels don't go fast enough for vert skating or bowl skating at any speed. So the bigger the better for me. And so, yep, 58 millimeters. Onto the bearings. These ones are Bones Swiss bearings. Say no more. They're just really good. They last forever. If you look after them, don't get them wet, clean them every once in a while, they last for years and years and years, and they feel like brand new for years and years and years. So people buy things like Bones Reds or other brands and they last perhaps for the length of time that they have their board set up, and then they buy new ones when they refresh their board. I don't refresh my board very often and I don't want to have to, so I buy bearings that will last for years and years. Then I don't have to worry about anything. They just work and they go fast, they never slow down. So I like Bones Swiss bearings. So there you have it. That is my Cal Peralta Bucky Lassick. And I guess the only other thing to talk about perhaps is the stickers that I've got on there. So Vertical Magazine, Jack Wallbridge's Vert Skating Zine. If you've never heard of that, look it up. Vertical Mag on Instagram. It's all about what's going on in the UK vert scene. It's a great magazine. Crystal Palace Skate Park, my favourite skate park. The pool that you'll see me skating all the time. UK Vert Series sticker. So the UK Vert Series is the vertical skating series for the UK, obviously. It's all in the name, and that's a series of events, I think 6 events over the summertime in the UK, and you might have seen some of my videos, but basically the whole crew that I skate vert with are all competitors in the UK Vert Series, and that's it really. Not too many stickers, but that's the board, and hopefully you found a look at my board interesting. I can do another one on the vert board. It's basically exactly the same, except it's got tighter trucks and it's a different deck. It's the Steve Caballero 216 deck. And if you look back at my videos, you'll see it's the one where I did a custom graphic where I airbrushed the Steve Caballero graphics on there. I'll put a link in the description below for you to check that out. And I think that will negate the need for me to do another video about that one, because that whole board is exactly the same, just the trucks are tighter, and it's the Caballero 216 board. But yeah, hope you found that interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you ride the same one? Do you like this deck? Do you want to get this deck or any of the other stuff I'm riding? Ask me any questions, feel very free, or tell me what you prefer, what you're riding. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button and leave a comment below. If you want to stick around and see more of my videos, then please do subscribe. But until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.